So for a good chunk of last season, I was playing a lot of decks that were either reactive, like Tribunal Control, or decks that wanted to stall until you pulled off some sort of combo, like Nixox, and I wanted to get back to my roots. I really enjoy playing proactive decks, and while I played some proactive decks last season, the number of games I played on them was smaller than I probably would have liked. So for today's video, we're going to take a look at Sorcerer again. If you know me, you know I love Sorcerer. This is a little bit more aggressive of a list. This one does not have the siege catapults, but I've been tinkering around with and toying with Seyda Courier a lot, so this list does include it. And for the next few videos, there's likely going to be proactive lists involved. I've got a mid-Daggeth list that I want to test, an aggressive Redoran list that CVH had been playing and I've been also playing that I really like, so I'm sure we'll see that as well. But for today, for this video, we are going to jump on the ladder with Sorcerer. Again, this is slightly more aggressive than previous builds you may have seen me use. And this is a deck testing format. So if you're not familiar, if this is your first video of mine watching, we're going to play 2 games on the ladder, win or lose, just to kind of showcase how this deck is functioning and, you know, see if we can learn a thing or two. So it does appear we're going to be going second against Daggeth, and I like the Quartermaster, I like the Spirit. We have a lot of ways to trigger Mighty Conjuring even without the catapults in this list, but we're going to throw that back. Also, I forgot before I sat down to start this to get my deck tracking stuff up, so we're going to go ahead and lead off with this is a proactive, or excuse me, this is a proactive start. This is a reactive 2-drop, so clearly no reason to use the ring, rush that out there. It does save our ring charges for stuff like Haunting Spirit.
Careful there, friend.
And our hand is, after the mulligans, gotten rather clunky. So, yeah, we're just going to swing for 2, and I'd like to get the Spirit out, but then we lose that assuredly. So let's go ahead and slow that down. Alright, now I've got my deck tracking stuff up. Good, good, good. Okay, so we have not a great opener here. Now, sadly, because of the priests, we are still a turn removed from being able to silence that. And they now have the ability to contest every one of our threats. This is a really bad opener for this deck. I do run the Shadow Fence even without the catapults because this version does run Corrupted Shade, so it's a great way to combat that as well. I do also, just in all honesty, still really like the utility, but getting 2 of them this early in this matchup does not seem to be helping us a whole lot. So we're going to go ahead and push damage. And then we're going to develop a Haunting Spirit. And then because we're probably going to lose this to a value trade and this to a value trade, we'll just go ahead and develop this over here as well. Now, one option we could have had is instead of deploying this, we could have put a Steel Dagger here. We would have attacked for 1 more and it would have made this trade not be a value trade, but at this point, we're kind of short on bodies. I kind of wanted to get those going, because our creature quality is not great right now, which is kind of a shock. Sorcerer, all of the strength from Sorcerer as a class and why it's ran so often as a mid-range deck is that it has some of the best creature quality in the game. Daggerfall Mage, staple, Haunting Spirit, one of the better cards in the game. Obviously, Young Mammoth has been a staple for a long time. Between Corrupted Shade and Bleak Coast Troll, you get a pair of, you know, 5/5s that cost 4. Even in the 2 slot, right? Ward Crafters are great. Wind Keeps are great. Sparrow Stalker. Like, the list is a long one. Alright, so we now have to decide how badly we want to fight for this over here, and I think the answer is pretty badly. So our options are, we could double dagger, trade into this. This would guaranteed have the +3/+3 lane here, and then we could value trade. The other option is we could stick a 4/4 on the board, and then we have a 50-50 shot of that happening. We have a chance it lands on the Shadow Fen, and we have a chance it lands here. If it lands here, you still take the value. Doing this requires a ring charge, but I like it a little bit more because it saves the daggers and puts another body on the board. So that is the route we're going to go. So we're going to go like this. We are going to silence here so that we can get this trade. And then, like I said, 50-50. Sadly, we didn't win that 50-50. Now, we could push 2 damage here. But we also have some other things to consider. If this deck runs Leaf Lurker, and by this deck I mean our opponent's deck, letting them get damage here would be problematic. So I actually think that instead of risking the loss of a 7/7 to 2 damage, we're just going to go ahead and make that trade as well. Because at this point, we're pretty significantly behind in resources, so we kind of got to hold on to whatever advantage we do have. Alright, so that's a Blood Dragon. That is a nasty, nasty beast. Mother of mine. Let's go ahead and smack him in the face. We do not have the ability to ring into this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and silence the Blood Dragon. You must be cleansed. Just because we don't want any shenanigans occurring with him maybe trading or putting an item on this. For example, if he slapped a mace on it, a Sentinel Battle Mace, he could trade over here pretty carefree. Now they will get to do damage, but right now we're slightly winning the race. We do have an Encano, which helps us close it out potentially. But depending on what they play here, there is a strong chance that we're just going to ring out Mighty Conjuring this next turn. So Encano is likely still a couple of turns away. Again, depends on what they play.
Perhaps we can help one another.
You bet on the wrong side.
So they're going to play that Telvas, hoping to win said race. And now we have some decisions to make ourselves. So we could get him down as low as 10 if we just ignored this, but that doesn't feel like the right course of action. We could risk taking 9, right? Like we could double trade here, risk taking 9, and then play a Bleak Coast and a Wind Keep, saving our ring charge for Encano the following turn. They'll be at 7 Magicka, so we do have to weigh. If we take 9, they would need 8 more damage out of 7 Magicka to potentially just outright kill us. But we would have enough to potentially threaten lethal the following turn. The other option is we could play Mighty Conjuring here and not potentially take 9. And that does feel like the safest play. So we are going to go ahead and make this value trade here. And then because we have this, we're going to go ahead and ring up. And we're going to play a big boy over here. Now, risks. We could just outright lose this because we took the value trade. Leaf Lurker is a problem, but small charge creatures, or even mid-sized charge creatures are a problem. Cliff Racer could take this out, obviously. If this happens to be a Dagoth that runs Bat, and I don't think it is, it looks like it's a mid-range Dagoth, but if it happens to be one that runs Bat, could be a problem. Even something like Stormcloak Vanguard with an item, Stormcloak Vanguard with like a rapid shot. There's a lot of ways, even Firebolt really, that this priest could bite it. So we are not banking on it surviving, but we are hoping that our big boy Atronaut here hopefully buys us some time.
Wrong side.
So if we have a mace, so that is the mace we were worried about earlier, and it turns out we are in fact still worried about it. That was not great for us, to say the least. Not great for us at all. So now we have to put ourselves in the best position to win. And we do not have a good way to do so. So we could develop Bleak Coast and Young Mammoth in the Shadow Lane, and it does feel like that's probably still going to be our best bet. But then we will need a Prophecy for us to have any shot at winning. It is arguable whether or not we should have tried to race last turn. Yep, it does look like that's going to be our best course. No point in taking this trade for him. We might as well pop this ward now, even if it does nothing for us. Going to go ahead, develop the biggest threats that we can. And again, we need Prophecy help. We need them to not have lethal. And shocker, Dagoth has a lot of reach, so they probably have lethal. But we also need Prophecy help if we want to threaten lethal ourselves. Uncano, not going to do it for us. All right, no Prophecies. Yep.
You bet on the wrong side.
So they did have the mace that we were worried about. In fact, they had two of them. Kind of a bummer. Kind of a bummer. So, hindsight, we're going to jump into the second game here. Hindsight is that game turned on us playing the Lava Atronaut. Had we developed a Wind Keep and a Troll and ignored the Magister, we might have had a shot. Problem is with the mace, they would have had lethal, so we would have needed them to not have an answer for our Shadow Fen developed in Shadow. Yeah, it's kind of hard telling there whether or not that was going to be successful one way or the other. We didn't get to see the rest of their hand, but this looks keepable. We are going second against Tribunal, and hopefully this one will go a little bit better. I don't think that the last game necessarily went bad. The difference between a Wind Keep and a Crown Quartermaster is pretty big. So we're gonna go ahead, use our ring charge. So the big reason that I think this is worth ringing out is oftentimes people see the Wind Keep and they will use a negation, and that makes this a safer play the following turn. Sadly, they did not do that, so there's a good chance that we do just eat a negation nonetheless here, but...
I smell the stench of the living.
Interesting.
Sheol take.
Interesting. I think instead of using our ring charge, I'm just going to go ahead and contest this, largely because we didn't want him gaining health. Alright. So it will cost us a dagger and our last ring charge, but can develop some big boy threats. Now the downside here is they've hit 5. You have to expect Javelin or Cast into Time. Again, we're not exactly shocked by that. Being on Tribunal, they also likely have Edict, things like that. Alright. It makes us a little bit sad, largely because we do not, I repeat, do not have a way to save it at the moment. This would have been a great time to have one of those Shadowfen priests from last game. And also because when we hit Mighty Conjuring next turn, we've now lost our 5-attack creature. So, 'tis no es bueno.
I smell the stench of the living.
We're gonna go ahead and develop there. We're still a turn away from Dawn's Wrath if they had it. Ice Storm does clear these two, but they would also need like a Firebolt after the fact. Instead, sadly, they have the Execute, so now an Ice Storm would wipe most of the board. Interesting. So we could push some damage, or we could double trade in with the dagger to get a shot at a blood magic spell. Which is interesting because outside of Corpse Curse, almost all of the blood magic spells are things that would be positive, things that we would want. The Gargoyle is a big body and it would allow us to pair it with Mighty Conjuring. Raise Dead is good for us for a number of reasons. Drain Life is Reach that we would be welcoming. Corpse Curse, not very good for us, however. And we would sacrifice a fair amount of board to make that happen. The reverse being that we would push 4 damage and develop this and potentially not get value. So this is, much like last game, one of those turns where there's a strong chance that this makes or breaks things. For fun, though,
Do your worst.
I think we're going to make the trade.
Wrong place for a midnight stroll.
We draw.
I think we're going to take the risk here.
Blood.
And Corpse Curse. Ew. Ew. Alright, well, that's 2 casts down. Problem is still no Javelins or Edicts have been seen, so our 5/5 not safe.
There's always a way, and I can always
Alright.
find it.
Laneth is probably not great for us, for obvious reasons. Kind of wondering now whether or not they found like Dawn's Wrath or something of that nature. We're gonna go ahead and make a big boy. And develop a Wind Keep. This very well could be like Conscription Tribunal, in which case Laneth would have likely went and found Conscription for him. A big reason for separating my threats was in the off chance they did go find Dawn's Wrath. That's why you would potentially hide this, go over here. Another reason I'm okay with putting this here is if they have spot removal, killing this with spot removal doesn't change putting it in the same lane as Laneth. They just nuke it. If they don't have spot removal, they would need multiple damage effects, right? Like they would have to have like Mage's Trick or Firebolt or something to get rid of the ward, trade this in, and use Lightning Bolt. That's a sufficient number of cards to like warrant that dying to. Oh, well, it looks like they are gonna have
The
it.
tribunal will always come to the people's aid.
Or they just really want to gain 7 health here. Because this will go to a 7/7 with Drain and Guard. Oh no, they didn't do the full. Okay.
This should be
Alright. Alright, I understand.
Confound you!
Not bad, not bad at all. Let's go this route. Again, this corpse curse kind of just taunting me. Would have been nice for this to be anything else past couple of turns, but this turn especially.
Blood will spill.
Alright.
Let's go!
So, Schemer's not what we wanted to see, because we don't want them drawing more cards. I mean, we have put a fair amount of pressure on them, and they don't have a lot really left going for them. Alright. Memory Wraith doesn't really hurt us a whole lot. We don't have those kinds of effects.
Careful there, friend.
Go ahead and hide that. There's only one execute left. I don't think it's worth playing the Seyda to stop a third execute at this time.
At the ready.
The real question is it worth it here? Probably.
I come bearing gifts.
Your blood will spill.
Because if they don't have the removal, we have enough to threaten lethal there. That's probably the correct play. It's kind of a shame that wasn't Drain Life for obvious reasons.
You must be cleansed.
Alright, so they do have the removal. While we would really like to be able to trigger this, at this point, I think it's worth it to gamble just naked and hope for the 7/5. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And much like with our Blood Magic spell, we get the worst outcome. Even the 5/3 being able to hide in the Shadow Lane and threaten lethal would have been preferable.
Your blood will spill.
Instead,
Perhaps we can help one another.
we don't get it, and they have a Magister. Alright, well.
By the 8th, they will meet their makers.
We need a lot of help now. Much like last game, I don't necessarily think that this is our deck malfunctioning.
Your blood will spill.
This is going to be a combination of, like, my play mistakes. This is going to be a combination of my play mistakes and some bad RNG. I firmly believe if we would have got, like, any other Blood Magic spell, we probably would have been in a much better position. But it's not looking great.
By the light of the 3.
Alright, they have the shackle. We desperately needed some prophecies there. So we can get them down to 1. Which would at least give us the option of a lightning bolt lethal. At which point they would then have to consider passing again, like it would buy us a turn. I mean, it would be nice to get rid of this, but I do feel like setting up at least a lightning bolt lethal is probably correct. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and negation our own mammoth just to break this. We're gonna go ahead and get that lightning bolt in. We're gonna develop a troll. So they will undoubtedly trade into our mammoth.
This was a worthy contest.
But we are just hoping that we have some help, because the ward doesn't apply until end of turn. So, alright, well, doesn't even make the trade. That feels like a mistake. And a good game. Alright, well, we played to our outs. We just won a game that we probably shouldn't have. But we pulled it off. Alright, so Sorcerer. The big thing I want to mention here is Seyda. I've been toying with it a bit in Assassin. I've also been toying with it a bit in Sorcerer. I just really like the card. Worst case scenario, it's just a 3-1 for 2, but it provides a lot of reach, and in decks with ward creatures, I'm just finding that the utility has been very, very welcome in terms of like putting it on a ward creature, trading up into big guards. It's also just a lot of burst from hand. Most people plan around lightning bolts in Sorcerer, but they don't start planning around additional +3s from combat tricks. It's just been nice. So yeah, anyway, I'm done rambling. Thanks for watching. Until next time, may you walk on warm sands.